The original Lost Cities is one of my favorite board games of all time. It's one of the games that got me into the hobby. So when I found out there was a Lost Cities roll and write from Reiner Knizia, I was pumped! Let's talk about it.
What does that even mean, Bowers Game Corner?
Ahoy there, YouTube! I'm back again today for another game review, and today I'm very excited to check out Lost Cities, the roll and write from Cosmos Games. This is from Reiner Knizia, who actually designed the original Lost Cities, an absolutely spectacular two-player game, one of my favorite two-player games of all time, must-try game. But it's for 2 to 5 players now, and it's for ages 8+, and it is, in fact, a roll and write game. So, the thing that I love most about the original Lost Cities, and I want to explain this to explain one of the issues I have with this game, is that in the original Lost Cities, it's the only game I've ever played where I don't like taking my turn. Because your turns can just be absolutely insanely stressful. If you've played Lost Cities, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And if you haven't played Lost Cities, you're saying, what the heck are you talking about? Is it really that stressful every turn, whether or not you're going to get rid of a green 8? And I say, yes, it is! And if you haven't tried the game, I absolutely recommend it. But that's one thing that I absolutely adore about this game, and I was like, oh my gosh, I hope they can capture that feeling in the roll and write, because that would be absolutely delightful, being able to play Lost Cities up to 5 players. Now, I know they expanded to 4 players at some point. I've never actually played that, but stay on track. We're talking about Lost Cities roll and write. Stop trying to get me off the beaten path here. So in Lost Cities roll and write, you are going to get really only 2 components. You are going to get a sheet, which I'll explain a little bit more about, and 6 dice. Ooh. Now, the 6 dice are broken up into 3 D6s, which each have 6 different colors and symbols on them for the colorblind, which is nice, and they even specifically mentioned that in the rules. And then you get on your sheet, your mind might be blown, but there's going to be 6 different colors right here, and you're going to be trying to race up this track right here, because the first person to cross the bridge, which once again ties to the Lost Cities exploration theme, is going to get 20 points, and everyone else will cross off the bridge, and they won't be able to get the 20 points. They'll still be able to hop over and score more points. And it also has the doublers down here, which I'll talk a little bit later. So they're really trying to capture the feel of Lost Cities, but I'm getting ahead of myself. So the other dice are D10s, and on your turn, you're going to roll these 6 dice. You're going to roll them into the middle of the table, and you personally are going to get to pick one of the D6s and one of the D10s. So I could pick a blue 2. So I say, I'm taking the blue 2. I leave the rest of the 4 dice in the middle of the table, and then I mark on my little score pad here. I'd start at the bottom, and I'd say blue 2. And now how this works is, it's a lot like Quicks, if you play that roll and write game. I can put a 2 here, I can put a 2 here, I can put a 3, you can put anything higher or equal, but you can never go lower. So if I went 2, 6, 7, I could go 7, 7, 8, 9, 10, 10. But I could never go below 7. I could never go 6. I could never go 5. And that's really the crux of it. You always have to keep going higher. Now, that's made a little bit easier because you can always refuse dice, which is one of the ones over here, which is actually kind of interesting because there's 2 different ways for this game to end. Either everyone gets exhausted from refusing too many dice, or all the bridges get circled. And they really have to do that because I played this at 2 players twice and 4 players once, and you have to have differing end game victory conditions. But I'm getting too much into the weeds here. But really, on your turn, you're going to take 2 of those dice. You're going to mark your thing, and then everyone else is going to then look at what's remaining on the table and be able to just kind of take it without physically taking the dice. And then you pass the dice to the left. You rinse, wash, and repeat. Now, the other interesting aspects here are there's 2 symbols on this little thing, which are the arrows that point up and the treasures. And the treasures are pretty self-explanatory. The more treasures you collect, the more victory points you are going to collect. Now, one of the most interesting aspects about Lost Cities, the original game, and they actually capture it really great in this, is that there is potential for you to score a lot of negative points if you fail massively. Like if you just completely fall on your face. And I've played Lost Cities quite literally over 100 times. And there's been times where I've completely had a game in the bag and I just got so cocky and I've thrown the entire game because I threw down too many doublers. And if you love Lost Cities, you probably had something similar to that. But I was hoping they'd be able to do that, and they do in a really interesting way because it's there's negative 40 on all this. So everything down here is going to score you points. This is negative 40, negative 30, negative 20, negative 20, negative 15, negative 10. And if you really get hosed, There's the doublers down here, which if you ever roll a 10, you can make it into a doubler if you'd like. And just like in the original game, if I put a 2 in the yellow, I could not use this doubler anymore, but that just doubles your score. So it could be potentially from negative 100 all the way up to 100, which is a huge, huge point swing. Now, that being said, you're probably never going to hit that point swing, because if you did, you would be a moron, I think. Because you have a pretty good feel for roundabout when the game is going to end, because all the information, as far as I know, is public. You don't have a sheet or anything. You don't have like a thing to hold it, hide it. So okay, he's been exhausted. All right, she's still in. And so you could game the game if you really wanted to. This is not the kind of game where you'd want to do that. But I have friends that I play with, and I will bring this to my next game night, who will try to game the game, and that's who we are. We're gamers. I mean, we're gamers. Obviously, some of us like to try and game the game. And I think to a certain extent, all of us like to game the game, but it just depends on what the game is. But anywho, there's the race aspect, which is fun. But let's just get to the review. I'm beating around the bush here. And I'm going to start off, as always, I do the pros, I do the cons. But I want to start off by saying I think this is a very good game, and I'm going to be keeping this game in my collection. But starting on the con side, it doesn't give me the feel of agony and stress on my turn that the original game did. With the red 8. I don't want to get rid of the red 8. It doesn't give you that at all. Most of the time, the choices in this game are super simple. Either it's your turn, and you roll 6 dice, and it's like, ooh, I have 3 choices. I can pick A, B, or C. And most of the time, A is going to look way better than B, and I can't even do C. And the later you go on in the game, that's the more prevalent it's going to be. So your choice is going to be super simple. Oh yeah, I take A. Done. And then everyone else at the table is then only going to have B and C to pick from, and they're going to be like, well, obviously I can't do B, so I'm doing C. Or, there's very rarely in this game like, oh, that's a hard choice. I don't know what to do. I need a second. I'm really stressed out. There's no tension. Nearly every choice you make in this game is like, yeah, that was probably not a choice. Except for when it comes to the doublers. The doublers are the one rare bit of really big choice in this game where it's like, oh, this could be big or this could be little. But really, it doesn't end up playing out that way, because you can see the game state. You see when the game is going to end, and it's like, all right, this isn't worth taking the risk, most likely. I don't think I have enough turns to really even double. And so you'll just do it early on, and if somebody rolls a 10, the more I talk about the game, the more issues I'm having with it. But I still really do enjoy it. Sorry, my mouth's a bit dry. And that's about the only con I have, is that the choices are pretty much just obvious. And also the gameplay is going to be very samey from game to game to game. Some of my favorite games, my personal type of favorite game is a game that every single time I come into the game, I can say, all right, I'm going to have a different strategy. I'm going to try something different based on what's going on. And that's part of the reason why I love Dominion. Or Orleans, or a lot of other games like that, where it's like every single time I go into it, I can try a different game. Now, the original Lost Cities is not a game like that. So I hope I'm not being unfair mentioning that as something that I don't like about this game. No, I think it's fair, because Lost Cities still had that extra little thing. It had that extra little oomph, which was that incredible sense of tension on your turn. This does not have any of that such tension, and I think that's my main issue with this game, is that it goes from being what I consider could be a great game to just a good game, because it doesn't give me any really amazing feels. It's more like Member Berries. This is kind of like Member Berries the game here. I'm like, oh, this makes me feel like Lost Cities. It's like, oh, I doubled up, but I scored a bunch of points. Oh, you forgot to do your doubler on the score. Fun stuff like that, but it's just not as good as the original Lost Cities. It does expand up to 5 players, though, which then allows you... it allows you to kind of give some of the Lost Cities experience to someone else who maybe hasn't played Lost Cities, and then at the end they're like, yeah, it was fun. And I was like, oh, but here's the thing, if you like that, Lost Cities is even better. I feel like that might be why Reiner made this game. It's just I want more people playing Lost Cities, so we're going to put out a game that feels a lot like Lost Cities, but isn't as good. Still very good, but not as good. And I don't think most people are going to poo-poo that too much, at least not for me. It personally is not for me. And the other people that I played with who had played both all agreed as well. They still like the original better. But the other comment I have with this game is what I said, that you're never going to go into this game with a different strategy that much. It's all pretty much the same thing every single time. Moving on to the pros, though, I really enjoyed Lost Cities Roll and Write. I'm going to keep it in my collection. A couple different reasons. First and foremost, it allows me to share the gospel of Lost Cities. And I hadn't even thought about that before I started reviewing this. I don't have a script. I don't have anything in front of me. It all just kind of flows out. But this is like an immediate way for me to keep this game that got me into the hobby. This was one of the first 3 games I ever played, I believe. Was Lost Cities was one of them. Actually, more like the first 10, I do believe. But yeah, I really like being able to do that, especially for older games. And that's a weird one. But why do we go watch G.I. Joe? Like, why is James Bond still a thing? It's just, these are things from when we were younger that we want to stay relevant. You know, we all want to keep part of our pop culture. You know, we want our pop culture to be the stuff our kids love, because then that's just so much easier to bridge that gap. And it's amazing when companies can do that. And I think there's a small part of that in Lost Cities Roll and Write. Jesus, that's probably not something you're going to see in any other review. That's a really deep one. But the game's fun. It is. It's easy to learn. It's easy to teach. I taught it to my 8-year-old Sean. We'll do it, but a Bauer family learns on it soon. And he got it. Just like that. You know, there's just enough going on to make it interesting with the up arrows and the collecting the treasure. And the other thing I really do like, which is the fact that you can score 20 points as well over here on the rerolls. Or not the rerolls, but the not taking the dice, where you're like, I don't want to take the dice. I like that, because even if you are not taking a lot of dice, which generally means you're probably not doing as well, you're still like, hey, I got the 20 points first. I think the game has a little bit of could have a little bit. No, I don't. I think it's just mostly. I think the big thing is, I think this is a very good game. And I'm going to play this game. And I'm going to keep this game. And this is going to be one of the very few roll and writes that I get on a routine basis. I do believe that. But it's never going to be the game that me, as more of someone who's moved deeper into the hobby, is going to want, like, yearn to play. But I think when I was first getting into the hobby, I think I would have. You know, I think this would have been a game that I absolutely would have adored and played the snot out of. And I think most people that buy this game are going to get numerous plays of this game. Like, if this game interests you, I think you're going to enjoy the game. And like, if the game doesn't interest you, I think you are going to enjoy the game, but not as much. Just because, I don't know. I need to play this actually with. So here's my big blind spot on this game. I just realized I have only played this with other people who have played Lost Cities. I now need to go out. Hopefully, someone from my game night hasn't played it, because I feel like I really want to get some input from someone who has never played the original game. Because it's like when I reviewed King of New York. It was just you couldn't not think about King of Tokyo when playing a game like that. And I had the same thing with that, because it does such a good job of recapturing a lot of the different elements, which I guess goes back onto the pro side, that it does do a good job of creating the doubler and the race aspect and the numbers having to go higher. And they do a good job of giving you some of those feels. But in the end, as you can tell, I'm clearly conflicted. I still think it's a very good game. That is Lost Cities, the roll and write from Cosmos. If you enjoy what I'm doing, please be sure to click on that subscribe button down below, as I'm trying to reach 9,000 subscribers, celebrate my 9-year anniversary of me making YouTube content. Also consider supporting the Patreon down below, as I'm currently a stay-at-home dad. And in the comments below, let me know. Lost Cities, have you ever played the 3- and 4-player version of it? You can play with more players. Let me know what you think about that in the comments down below. That's one that I've always wanted to try out, but I never got to. But how is it if you play that? And also, just in general, what are your thoughts on Lost Cities? I think it still stands the test of time. Lock, stock, and 2 most smoking barrels, which isn't a correct use of that expression. But let me know what you think. And as always, thanks for your time, YouTube.